I want to talk about this a little bit. So we know about abundance. We've all been abundant. For those of you who have not heard the term abundance before, it is the name of I guess, a political and social movement founded by the Abundance Book by Derek Thompson and Ezra Klein. The book largely argues that, like, that we need to there needs to be abundance of stuff, and we need less regulation. I mean, it's one of those things, and this has been kind of talked to death. um One of those things that's basically like, actually, here's how capitalism could make capitalism better. Here's how, here's how to fuck yourself to virginity, that type thing. So, but the weird thing with some of this, one of the weird things has just been how popular this movement has gotten so quickly, how quickly it's become a part of the potential future of the Democratic Party, how quickly articles will be like, what's the future for the Democratic Party? Populism and socialism, or abundance? And it's like, what are we doing here? Because Abundance is a book written by two guys. And before that book was written, no one was talking about this. But let's say, like, left-wing populism is an actual political tradition, and there's an actual tradition in America and in recent political history of people fighting for left-wing movements. We have politicians and leaders in America who have very recently, advocated for those sorts of movements. We have Mondami, things of that nature. So why is it that we're supposed to act like abundance is a real thing? And how quickly did they have a conference? You know what I mean? This book came out this year, and they're already having a conference. So let's see. Dave Weigel, a writer I like a lot. It's important to have some journalists you like. This guy looks like he's going to save us. Okay, so let's look at the news about abundance. What's the deal with abundance? Oh, you know what I forgot? There's a Jerry Seinfeld thing. We'll maybe talk about that in a bit. At the abundance movement's largest ever gathering, even the fact that we're calling this like a movement that's been around for a while, with this manifesto still on the bestseller list, it's like the manifesto. It's selected articles and essays written by Derek Thompson and Ezra Klein that were largely already published in other things they put in a book so they could resell it and make a bunch of money. Its biggest champions wrestled openly with its status as a dirty word in U.S. politics. Is this a Streisand effect thing? I don't ever quite understand how stuff works, but is this like a Streisandy thing? Wherever the emerging abundance coalition of yes in my backyard liberals and deregulatory libertarians organized, they would win. Yet when they talked out loud about abundance, protesters denounced them and ordinary voters were left confused. I never used the word abundance in the South Bronx, said New York Democrat Representative Richie Torres, who recently had a stellar appearance on the Adam Friedland show. I don't use the word abundance either, said Republican Utah Rep Celeste Malloy. And said Torres talked about a build housing agenda, and she talked about a liberty agenda. And of course, one of the things with the whole abundance deal is, as they see it, the real problem is state and local and federal regulation. And if we just take the regulation away, then they're going to build really good houses for all of us, for you in particular. That's going to be just your exact style. Over 2 days in a DC hotel last week. I mean, and again, like, we have to ask, why are these the people that are hyped on this movement? So it's people that have money just fly to DC and spend 2 days in a hotel there. Hundreds of think tankers. Now listen, I'm technically a YouTuber. That's not like a cool thing to be, but I'll take it over think tanker. Philanthropist, which is another word for really rich people that are probably related to pedophiles that use the money that great grandpa got doing like slavery or something to fund nonprofits to basically buy indulgences from the market for their devastated souls. And local elected officials debated pro-growth ideas that did not fit entirely within one political party. Now that this has been framed as such. Shout out to Dan Flashes for sure. Thanks for catching that. But there's a sort of dichotomy between degrowth and the abundance thing. I'm more of a degrowth guy myself. Shout out to Koei Saito. If you're not aware of Koei Saito's work, I would check it out. I made a video about it for a place that I used to work that I no longer work. And I'm going to say don't watch that video because it's just going to give money to some weird new company. I don't know. Fuck those guys. But the whole deal here is an ideology of abundance, growth, development, just like boring capitalist stuff. Let's see. It says a gift desk offered plush nuclear power reactors and stickers for the sci-fi abundance brands dreamt up by the libertarian Niskanen Center. Most of the champions were liberals, and the attendees who spoke most about politics wanted to save the Democratic Party. Their enemies were more diverse. On the left were environmentalists who wanted to leave carbon in the ground. On the right, MAGA nationalists who were dismantling wind farms and carrying out mass deportations. That feels weird to me that this is a movement that's supposed to save the Democratic Party, and one of their enemies is the environmental movement. One of their enemies are people that are actively talking about saving the planet, saving the planet that we live on so that the planet doesn't die, which seems like it would be good. Oh boy. Let me get back to this. We now have a federal administration that appears to be very much pro-scarcity, says California State Senator Scott Weiner. I never know if it's Weiner or Weiner, Democratic leader in the movement. You can take my word for it. This guy kind of sucks. To win, abundance thinkers said they needed to be realistic about what voters wanted. They needed to figure out that because the idea of building more housing to make life cheaper has been a winner. I mean, this is crazy. The biggest evidence of that remains Zohran Mamdani in New York, and he is not a part of this team. So the person who is managed to win, the person who has had political successes advocating for cheaper, affordable housing, is someone who is a socialist, who doesn't want to solve the housing crisis via market-based solutions. So they are using him as the evidence while they are advocating for a policy position that is oppositional to a socialist alternative to this sort of thing. Great. Good work. This is someone I disagree with in all sorts of profound, deep ways, says Rehan Salam, the president of the Conservative Manhattan Institute. Bad guys. But he had a slogan, afford to live, afford to dream, that thrilled young and immigrant New Yorkers, but it was not going to get where the movement wanted. So what they're honestly talking about is like, how can we take the political enthusiasm around progressive ideas and use them to trick young people into supporting policies that will economically favor private business and developers and the real estate industry. That's what they're talking about doing. That's what they're talking about doing. What you see on both sides is punitive egalitarianism. It's not a hopeful, constructive egalitarianism. It's an egalitarianism that's coming from a place of fear. It's about punishment rather than lifting everyone up. I have thoughts. Get off of my screen, Amazon ad. I mean, framing a more socialist alternative to the housing crisis as punitive egalitarianism is ridiculous. Sure, should we maybe be punitive towards the very small number of private groups and investors and real estate lobbyists who are making life shit for so many people? Yeah, we should, because their entire wealth is built on the exploitation of people and the depriving people of things that should be basic human rights. It's not punitive, right? Like these folks, it always becomes, we need an egalitarianism for everyone. But when they say everyone, they're not thinking like an egalitarianism in which poor people and immigrants and folks of color and all this sort of stuff have an ability to live good lives. They're saying we also need to lift up the venture capitalist and the think tank people and the conservative lobbyist and the energy industry consultants and the real estate money people. And to that I say, To that, I say maybe we don't. To that, I say maybe we do not. You know? Again, I think some of this relates to what FD gets into in the video that we mentioned earlier. Um, a movement that sees a call to make life more livable and affordable for everyone as punitive egalitarianism. Because for these people, it's not egalitarian if certain people don't have the opportunity to exploit the market to build unnecessary wealth. Um, and the semaphore has a little thing here about the book, um, which is there. The progressive resolving door. Yeah, the progressive revolving door project warned that the movement was corrupted by big tech figures, oil barons, and committed Trump supporters. I think that's important. Like, if a movement, it's like if you knew someone whose favorite food was shit, their favorite thing to eat was shit, human or animal. Would you go to a restaurant because they were like, "Oh, it's so good. No, you're gonna love it. I know we like different stuff, but you're gonna love it. I know that you don't like to eat human shit like how I do, but you're gonna love it." No, you'd be like, "Dude, I saw you eat poop in a hot dog bun on a public bus 2 years ago. I'm not taking your recommendation for a new Mediterranean cuisine spot, man." Right? You wouldn't do that. In the same way, if someone's entire political ideology, business ideology is based on like privatization, eroding away democracy, the shoring up of private wealth and capital, if that person is really excited about a movement that's promising some sort of egalitarianism, you're probably going to end up eating shit, my friend. Probably going to end up eating shit. Libertarians who would not be led into many progressive tents were welcome inside the Abundance Conference. Funders and guests came from the Libertarian Pacific Legal Foundation, which battled progressives to end affirmative action. Arnold Ventures, which has supported charter schools and pension reform. Pension reform, by the way, I love language. I love how language works. Pension reform. Pension reform normally just means things where you take away like guaranteed pensions to people and put it in the market, and they probably end up losing money anyways. Stand Together, the Koch Network's Philanthropy Foundation, which is an investor in Semaphore. I guess they had to admit it. So again, if all of the judges on the hit TV series Top Chef, but we only cook shit, invite you to a restaurant tour, do you want to go? If we're just sea salting the shit, I mean, come on, what are we doing? At a time when the most fundamental questions confronting the Democratic Party is how to stand up to Trumpism, it seems like a particularly bad moment to decide that the Kochs make better allies than the AFL-CIO. For anyone who this doesn't make like sense to, it's basically saying when the Koch brothers, really bad libertarian capitalist conservative guys, really bad guys. They're not the brothers who invented Coke. They're not Clips. When they say the Koch brothers, it's not a fun way of describing the rap group Clips. Clips are not the Koch brothers. They're the Koch brothers, but they're not the Koch brothers. When those guys are who we listen to, and labor unions are not people we listen to, again, we're on Shit Island, a dating show for people who exclusively eat shit. Abundance advocates really did seem to want to work with their potential allies on the right instead of reading them out. They should be, said Klein, reimagine what it means to participate in politics with a liberal temperament. Here's something you'll notice, and you notice it here, and you notice it a lot of places. These folks, I say the word folks too much, and people don't like how I say it. I'm trying to stop. These guys, these pizza pies, these people who are trying to center themselves as the vanguard of a new progressive democratic movement in America, They are more open to far right thinkers, to techno fascists, to libertarians. They're way more open to those guys joining them than they are labor unionists, social and socialist organizers, DSA types. Um, like they're why do we listen? Why do we listen to those people? It's just not. It's not good. It's not good. And I do think it's cliche to say, but it's a bit of saying the quiet part out loud, telling on yourself, whatever it might be. But if the Ezra Kleins and all these folks of the world just make it so clear that there's more room in their tent for the Koch brothers than there are for labor unions, they're telling us. So let's not be dumb. Progressives have funded at least 2 polls where the populism is a winning message and abundance is a weaker, compromised one. Of course it is. Because who does abundance appeal to? Like op-ed columnists, real estate guys, Silicon Valley, YIMBY people that have money and influence. But to the average working person, to the average person who's just like, it would be cool if I could own a home one day. It would be cool if my neighborhood was safer and the schools were better. It would be good to work a job and have 40 hours a week be enough to sustain myself and my family. Most people don't care about large scale real estate deregulation. A presentation about election messaging showed that cost of living, the economy, and inflation are the most important issues for voters. No shit. Life is expensive. The economy seems bad. Money is worth less than the money used to be worth. But they have to focus on immediate cost relief and find a hero versus villain. Can you imagine? Because I can't imagine this. Can you imagine a framing of abundance that appeals in a populist way? Like if you were the political PR person, how do you frame this movement in a way that appeals to students who are in debt, to industrial workers, to gig laborers, to just working people whose desire isn't to thrive in the market with a diversified portfolio? No, there's nothing wrong with that, but who just want to live and have enough time to watch the new show Survivor Shit Island. I don't know how you would market it to those people, but I'm not a political marketer. Let's see. Yeah, Thompson saw hope in Mondami's love of sewer socialism, focused less on ideology and culture than on better public infrastructure. But again, in saying that, it's like Derek Thompson, one of the authors of the Abundance book, is trying to underplay or undercut the avowed socialism of Mamdani. Like there is an ideology there, but the outcome of the ideology is public infrastructure. The material outcome of the ideology is, public housing, discounted housing, free housing, whatever. I think there's a way in which the ideas of abundance can sort of cut horizontally through many different types of politics and many different types of people, said Thompson. Here's what we know, guys. We know that populist policies that appeal to most working people cut horizontally. We saw this in 2016 and 2020 with the Bernard Sanders campaign. We know that the policies that work across the board are ones that guarantee people just have a normal and good life. It is so hard for me to comprehend or imagine that this is the messaging that the Democratic Party is going to use to claw back some semblance of democracy from authoritarianism and some would say fascism. This is it, and not any type of populism or egalitarianism. It bums me out, and it bums me out that the people who are pushing this ideology have more money, have more influence, have more power. They look like normal, nice guys. They write for the New York Times and the Atlantic. So, we can take them seriously. And I just don't. I just don't. David's view, the author of this, Dave Weigel, seems like a good guy. The progressive fear that the abundance movement wants to take over the Democratic Party isn't baseless. The yes in my backyard mindset is popular with younger elected Democrats. They've advised congressional Democrats. And that's the thing, too, like Democratic politicians listen to these guys because they're non-offensive essayists who also like media capitalism or whatever. They're not, these guys aren't going to listen to labor organizers and working people because, well, that'd be inconvenient. The short-term advantage is that it's Mom Donnie and not one of their own who's found a way to campaign on cheap housing. Again, because you don't have to invent cheap housing. Like, you don't have to invent that. You know what I mean? It's like the abundance people are, it's like we invented a way where you could have cheap housing. Like social housing exists. Like socialist housing policy exists. Communist housing policy, there's things here. Let's see. The aversion to harming any one person or place has diffusely harmed everyone because we just can't get shit done anymore. Ooh, Derek Kaufman, bad boy, founder of Inclusive Abundance. Who are these dorks and who's paying their bills? I just, every Democrat's going to run on affordability, and the abundance movement wants quick action when those Democrats win. To persuade them, they recruit like-minded electeds, blah, 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 blah. And then there's some room for disagreement here. Abundance got a critical read from left-wing historian Trevor Jackson. That review says, Klein and Thompson's agenda is predicated on avoiding distributional conflicts by increasing supply so as to lower prices, yet they do not address the problem that lower prices are good for buyers but bad for sellers, and therefore are themselves kind of a distributional conflict, though one mediated through markets instead of politics. Their faith in markets is axiomatic. Again, at the core of all of this is an axiomatic faith in the market. You know, at the core of this is the idea that we can have different food, but we got to use shit to make it. The only way we can make the food is shit. And then you say, what if we tried, I'm going to spitball here. What if we tried to make food that wasn't predicated on shit as a primary ingredient? They're like, no, that's not how it works. Well, why? Because there is that sort of axiomatic faith there. And it's even funnier and sadder to me that when Mom Donnie is offering a more socialist alternative on housing, they're like, yeah, no, we agree. That's good. Except we're just going to do it, but we're going to do it with shit. You know, but read things for yourself, check things out. I do worry that what we've seen now since 2016 is that working people, progressive people, and left-leaning Democratic voters in America have told us time and time again, they just want more populist policies. They don't care about increasing AI tech stuff or a bunch of weird ideological meaningless nonsense. People want to be able to get jobs and pay their bills and find houses on a planet that's not actively dying. And they want a little bit of a sense that the power that has been used and wielded over them by a small conglomerate of very influential people, that some of that power can be chipped away and some of that power can be given back to people. People just want to feel like the simulacrum of democracy in which they exist is slightly less fictitious. And the abundance agenda movement, conference, business, brand is arguing that giving more power to the people that created the situation by giving more power to the market, that's actually going to make working people's lives better. It's not great. It's not great. I hope that we can avoid this moving forward. And I hope that we can, you know, in our own lives, find ways to fight against this logic with people we know.